Good morning, everybody. So I'm gonna have a whole lot of nonsense on the screen for a moment, so just give me a minute here. Good morning, good morning. So I'm going to delete the trades we had for yesterday. We know those did well. But I want to mark a few of these support ranges, because I do believe we're going to see a little bit of a drop today. But we do have important data coming out pretty much when, or 15 minutes after market open. We have the Chicago PMI. And then 30 minutes after open, we have the JOLTS job openings. So those could be very key data sets. We do have a head and shoulders forming here, as well as a double top. Go ahead and change the template. So that's kind of what I'm anticipating today, is to pull down towards that 739.57, pull up slightly, then break down further. The thing we do have to contend with here is that we do have both bearish structure and bullish structure. We have the larger cup and potential handle forming. But we also have bearish structure forming at the top. But that is something we want to see at the top of a cup. You know, we always talk about that, how we short the top of a, cup tops, because with the bearish structure, that's telling us very likely we're going to head down and build a handle. Now, I did not get time to go over other trades last night. I had a very busy day yesterday. We're just gonna keep those super skinny, as that's kind of what I expect to occur today, and we'll just see how close that follows. Good morning, everybody. Hey Jen, I didn't get a chance to message you back. We'll see what's going on with the data sets. And if we pull down towards this range and we don't continue breaking down and we start having a bounce around this range, then that's going to be a really good call opportunity. I think that's what I would try to wait for. Um, if you could only take, a few contracts. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. We do have a lot of room down today. So today could be a pretty massive selling day, depending on, how much we see the volatility and everything pick up. We have this smaller inverse cup very likely closing here. From that, build a handle. Head down to the 739.57. Well, I actually want to get this to the penny, so hold on. 739.52. Now, this line here is the top of the cup. So we do have the expectation to sort of pull underneath that sometime today. Now, I want to look through some of my other trades really quick. So Israel stated that basically prepare for war with Iran at any time. So that's not good for our oil positions, which means that we are going to have to hedge here. So I'll probably be using the fund Gush. I know it has a weird name, but I'll be using this fund to hedge positions because this is the opposite of drip. And it'll, definitely carry its weight if we see this, continue to pick back up. So what I'll likely do is try to hedge around that 38 range. So I'd be taking a call here. I'll look at the prices come open, but I'll try to get something for September. Now I want to look at some of the structure here on semis. Now we are at the top of this selling channel for semiconductors. To break this channel, we'd actually need to go to the, looks like that 622 range. So if we're going to see continued selling, then we will see a rejection off the top of this channel, pulling downward. That kind of coincides pretty heavily with what we're seeing on SPY today. Now QQQ, make sure I type this exactly. So on QQQ, this cup doesn't look super strong. And the reason for that is because technically this other side didn't touch or didn't complete the cup by like 10 cents, which 10 cents matters. It may not seem like it. Um, but technically that's not a completed cup. Um, but I do think the market is trying to use this as a cup and handle because there is bearish structure there. Market opens in about a minute and a half. So I'm expecting more of a rejection today. Not expecting that entire range, of course, but I'm gonna make these skinny just so that they're present, but I don't want it to be completely clogging the screen. Good morning. Challenge, I'm down a little bit. I did have a bad week last week, but we will get it recovered. Okay, market opened. The HIG is down a bit. Now again, I'm not going to be taking any positions for a little bit here until I see something open up, very, very clearly. Decent spike in the ADL. And the VVIX is at 89.29. Now, if we do pull to the upper Bollinger here on the 5-minute time frame, I very likely will be taking a short. So we're there on QQQ, on semis, but we do need to see it on SPY. And I missed my opportunity, which is okay. Maybe not. Maybe we get a pull back up here. Now, before we take our puts, I'm going to wait for semiconductors to stop selling, or to stop buying, excuse me. Now, semis are very close to the top of their channel, which actually did break it slightly. Still have not entered puts yet. I want to see the HIG dropping further, and I want to see the VVIX pulling upward. Volatility pulling down slightly. The HIG is still at 79.97. VVIX is at 89.14. Now, again, I am waiting on these puts until we see selling within the semiconductors. Currently, they're at 625.02. So there's lots of buying going on. Now there is the potential here that we can see the buying take us all the way up to this 620 or 6, I can't talk, 742.99. Semi is still pushing pretty hard. It's currently at the 627. We are starting to see a little bit of selling out of semis, but not enough yet. And volatility is still sitting fairly low today. Still at 89.14, so pulling down slightly still. So going to be super patient with these puts here. Not taking them until, again, we see selling through semiconductors, tech. We need to see the HIG start pulling down slightly. And we need to see volatility pick up. Gonna go ahead and engage a couple of the puts here. So I'm taking the 740s. You can take the 739s if the 740s are a little expensive. I know the premium's a little high right now. Sorry, I haven't had a chance to check chat yet. Volatility ticked downward slightly, so dropped down to 89.05 for a moment there. It's back at 89.10, which is still fairly low. Looks like we might push for that 742.99, which would not be ideal for our puts. I want to look at the 1 minute time frame here for a moment. One-minute time frame can push up towards this 742.23. A little higher than that. 742.37. Volatility has ticked down still. It's at 88.93. QQQ starting to sell down a little bit. Kind of just waiting for the same thing out of semiconductors. Potentially a cup has closed here. Smaller cup on semis, very likely going to close. Volatility is starting to tick back up a little bit. Now we do have the Chicago PMI coming out, so let me go ahead and take a look at that. Came in a little higher than the forecast, but still lower than the previous. Previous was at 62.7. The forecast was at 55.7, and it came in at 56.7. So slightly above the forecast range. Not really too bearish or anything for the market. There's that same smaller cup here that we see on semis. Volatility is at 88.92. It's basically the low of the day. It was at 88.91, and the high of the day was at 89.39. Now we have to watch for tech and semis here because they have these smaller, potential cup handles forming. So these can form handles to push up to the upside. And the HIG is currently at 79.99. So there's a bit of buying in the HIG as well. Drop down to 79.98. Again, we need to see some real selling out of semiconductors and everything to really solidify that we're going to see this downside. I would like to see tech and semis validate these cups here. So if we can get QQQ to push down to the 726.85, that would invalidate the upside cup. Whereas some people in my chat call it cupside or cupward. We're heading cupward. But on semis, I want to see the 622.73 because that would invalidate that bullish cup. So we're just going to mark that. Same with QQQ here. So if we can get our push down to those levels and validate the bullish upside, then that would be ideal for our positions. Not willing to cut them yet. Oh, there's that push, very likely to the 742.99. So what I'll be doing is adding additional puts at the top of this cup, assuming we close it. And we did, we hit the 742.98. So I'm going to be patient here. Okay, I do want to see some additional selling signals before we enter, because this has invalidated some of this bearish structure. Now I want to look at semis for a moment here. Now I'm not selling these put positions just yet. But I do want to see some form of bearish structure forming up here at the top of this cup. And I want to see the VVIX picking up. I want to see the Higgs selling. Now, even though we are in the upper Bollinger on the 5-minute time frame, we do have to be careful because this could be one of those days where we just basically ride that level for a majority of the session, which we don't want. So we need to be careful of that. Hig pulled to 80.02, but we do have volatility pushing down pretty much to the low of the day. It's at 88.61. 88.54. 'Now the real kind of nightmare situation would be semis pushing for this 637.93. Well, it's actually 638.47. Gonna mark a couple other resistance ranges out. So again, I do want to see a bearish structure forming here before we really try to engage on additional puts. Yes, I'm still holding my previous puts. But I want to see like a head and shoulders, something like that. Something to tell us that the selling is going to start kicking in. Volatility is still pushing down. And we have the JOLTS data coming out in 2 minutes. Okay, I could look at chat. Oh, can you guys hear me? Yeah, if you haven't taken positions yet, just be super patient. Just wait. Sorry, I had to mute for a moment. Okay. So, still looking for bearish structure here. Volatility still pushing downward. The HIG is starting to drop a little bit. And let me check the JOLTS data. Oh, so it did come in elevated. That should pull the yields up and be somewhat bearish for the market. So we're going to go ahead and enter additional puts. And again, I'm just taking the 740s. Some of that bearish structure, but we need to see a lot more. Of course, they're just going to buy through this. Okay. We're going to cut puts here. I don't like this. We're still seeing volatility pulling down. So I did cut my puts. We're not seeing the bearish structure that I'm expecting. Instead, we're seeing very likely the push to the 745. Also have a massive, massive, massive buying candle there. Now, if we do see bearish structure again and we do see the volatility picking up and everything, I will re-enter the puts, but I don't want to be writing the puts all the way up to the 745. I'd rather just take additional puts up there, or, new puts, excuse me. And this is telling us, that semiconductors very likely are going to be pushing towards that 738. So make sure you're out of those puts. You don't want to be writing it to the upside. Okay. We'll look for a new entry when we get up there. But I'm not going to chase calls here either, because again, with this being above the upper Bollinger, not really what I'm looking for in terms of taking a contract. Now, if we do pull down a little bit, which seems kind of unlikely right now, but if we do, then I will take calls to the upside. But with the upper Bollinger, that's usually when I'm trying to take put positions. So basically, I'm going to just let the market push to this 745 and then take some puts once we start seeing some bearish structure. So we're just going to be very patient. Now, there is room for calls on the upside, but again, it's just kind of not the range that I want to be taking calls at. And we can delete these because those were entirely invalidated. This is the 1 minute time frame. So if we bounce off this 20 MA, that's going to tell us that we're going to that range. If we break down below it, then this will still create this head and shoulders. I am expecting more upside, but knowing the market, it'll spite me and now pull down like a couple points in the next few minutes or something. Now again, this is the 1 minute time frame. If we do reclaim this 20 mile range and start bouncing upward, I probably will take a couple 745 calls just because that's going to be the next destination. Volatility was at 88.11, currently at 88.22. Still expecting a bounce here. But the structure on the 1 minute time frame is starting to look somewhat bearish. See that of tech as well. Not so much out of semiconductors though. Okay, and I took a couple calls because with this bounce here, we should be heading up to that 745. Seeing an additional smaller cup out of semis. Now this still can turn into a head and shoulders, so we do have to be cautious, but it is looking okay for the upside move. We will hedge a couple 740 puts. I do not like how today is turning out. Structure is starting to get pretty bearish here on the 1 minute time frame. Volatility is pulling down very slightly, so at 88.19. Now, ideally, we get our push up to the 745, and then we will, look for bearish structure, cut our calls, add to the 740 puts, ride some downside. Volatility is at 88.16, so pulling back down. Should be seeing semis push to the 638.47, which will give us our push on the SPY. Now remember, this can still turn into a head and shoulders, so we have to be very cautious of that. QQQ. Close that cup, but I don't think it's trying to push for that 738. 5-minute time frame, we are pulling away from the upper Bollinger. But we have volatility pulling down even further as well. It's at 87.89. This head and shoulders is starting to look pretty okay though. And we have the HIG pulling down slightly, so it's at 79.99. But volatility has pulled down massively, so we should be seeing our upside buying here. Starting to see a little bit more buying out of semis as well, and out of tech, so that should carry over to the SPY. Volatility still pulling down. So at 87.76. Now QQQ has not invalidated the head and shoulders here. It needs to pull back up to the 732.59 to do so. And for SPY, that's the 744.53. Semi is pushing a new high of the day. And our calls are finally gaining weight, so that's good. Should aim to close this cup now. From closing that cup, look for a small handle. Then we get our upside push. Yes, I sold the puts earlier, but I did hedge another put around this range. Somewhere in there. But going to continue holding that put. Okay. Um, those puts we will add to once we push up to the 745.08. Not that exact range. We want to see, the right conditions form at this area. So we want to see bearish structure form. We want to see volatility picking up. We want to see the HIG dropping. We want to see real signals that selling is going to occur. But that's kind of our target. Head up towards that range. Find where they decide to put the top end of the day at. And then, head downward from there. Because again, this is a larger cup being formed. I still expect this right shoulder on this larger inverse head and shoulders to form. But perhaps That was kind of this downward candle. So semis should be getting ready to push to the 638 very, very soon here. QQQ, I really don't expect them to push that 739 today, but I think the possibility is there. Volatility has dropped again, so it's at 87.68. I'm gonna add to these later. Yeah, I'm gonna hold and add to those puts later. I'll be right back in just a couple minutes. I'm actually not feeling super well today. Um, I don't know if I have some sort of flu or something again, but I've been feeling super nauseous over the last 24 hours, so I'll be right back, everybody. But watch our positions very closely, okay? I am expecting the push upward. If we have some form of breakdown, then, you know, make sure you're managing those calls, okay? So I'll be right back. Alright, sorry about that. I'm back. Seeing a smaller micro cup forming there. So our structure is definitely telling us that we should be heading to that 745. Now there's the potential today that we could be pushing all the way to the 750. I don't think that'll happen, but this is the stock market. Doesn't really care what I think. All I know is that volatility is still super low right now. And the HIG is still holding up fairly okay. As long as it's holding this $80 range, then it's pretty much holding up. Getting very close to that 638.47. And while I don't anticipate it, today could end up being some really bullish day for some reason. And we could potentially see all the way to that 655.94 on semis. So Just waiting for our upside move at this point. Now tonight I will be setting up some new positions throughout the market if, I see decent opportunities available. So we'll be talking about those tomorrow. Should hit our 745 anytime now. So we're not going to be selling our calls until we also see semis push this 638 and QQQ can do whatever QQQ is doing. But we're specifically making sure to watch for semis to push the 638. Alright, so everybody's calls should be recovering some of the day at this point. Semis still have some room to push here. Now we're not going to be adding to our puts until we see some very obvious signals here, which so far we're not. I have 4 calls, so I'm just going to lock in profit on 2 of them. Sold perfectly at that 745.13. No, I'm not tacking on additional puts here yet. With how low volatility is and everything, um, any form of selling we see is very likely just going to be fairly mute. Not that I'm not going to short this later, but we want to see some actual signals that this is the time to short it. Which so far we don't have yet. We see that semis still have $1, roughly $2 upside. We see that QQQ potentially could be pushing another $5 upside, which seems unreasonable, but it's in the cards today. And the SPY could be pushing another $5 upside. So we don't want to be tacking on puts just to tack on puts. The reason why we did earlier is because we were trying to short the top of this cup, potential cup anyway. But they decided to form the handle way up above it, which they're kind of jerks for doing that, but it is what it is. WTI USO, I just added on positions today, actually, so yes, I know there could be the conflict starting back up again, especially with Israel coming out saying that, basically prepare for war. Um, but I'm stubborn. I'll keep in my oil puts. Now, volatility is still ticking downward, basically at the low of the day, so don't really worry about this selling too much. Market should be buying upward until we start to see volatility tick upward. As I said that it is still ticking downward. Okay, so it's at the 87.48. So still pushing for new lows of the day. Our HIG is buying upward. It's at 80.02. So don't get shaken out of your calls here. Okay. In fact, with this smaller cup and handle formed, potentially adding a couple calls into the 20 mile here could be, a good idea. Now I want to see where the 5 mile or where the 20 mile is on the 5-minute time frame. The 742.69. That's definitely not coming in right now. Bottom of this cup is at the, let's see, it's at that 743.16. Apologize for all the lines on the screen, but they do have a purpose currently. I'm gonna take a look at some of these 746 calls here. Because I think we're about to push back up again. Have not entered yet. Waiting to see semiconductors start basically ravenously buying up to the upside, which we're seeing, so took a position now. And of course they're gonna dump it on me. But I am looking for this to basically form this cup and the handle to the upside. Now we are at the lower Bollinger on the 1 minute time frame on QQQ and semiconductors. So I am expecting a bounce. Volatility still remaining very low. Volatility is at the 8750. Starting to see a little bit of buying out of semis again. And volatility pulling back down. So 8748. Seeing some buying out of QQQ. HIG is at 8003. What do I think on SMCI call? Let's take a look at SMCI. I had some calls on it, but I did cut those not last week. I think the week before. I have to double check. So SMCI. It has some absolutely terrible structure. This is a very large head and shoulders. I was expecting an upward breakout, but so far we just have this gross head and shoulders forming. I was able to sell on that pop when the news, whatever the SMCI news was, like a week ago. I don't really like SMCI calls right now, just due to the fact that there is, some massive bearish structure. We did not close the cup to the upside. Um, doesn't look super good right now. It looks like it's going towards the $19 range again. So this can be forming a head and shoulders. Volatility is at 87.56. But remember, we don't invalidate the bullish cup here until we drop down to that 743.17. Semis can also be forming this head and shoulders. Gonna turn on the moving averages for a second here. Volatility picking up a little bit. Now on the 1 minute time frame, we are at the lower Bollinger. So if we have a bounce, it could be a pretty large one. So we will be watching for that. Now the HIG is still holding strong, so it's at 80.01. Went ahead and added one more of these 746 calls. Volatility is starting to pick up a little bit, so it's at 87.66. But the HIG also moved up as well, which is at 80.02. Starting to see a little bit of buying through semis and tech, but it's not anything to write home about just yet. So we do need to see tech and semis pull back up towards the high of the day to invalidate some of this bearish structure. Volatility is still picking up a little bit, so it's at 87.70. So we do have to watch that carefully. If we do see a major spike in that, then that'll tell us that, you know, we need to be out of the calls. But so far, that's not the case just yet. So I'll be right back again. I apologize. I've been feeling really nauseous the entire morning. So give me just a minute and I'll be right back. I'm back, sorry about that. Just been super nauseous today. Anyway, who said the market could dump while I go have to throw up? So we did pull down to the see, did we get that 743.17? Got very close. $0.03 off. Volatility's at 87.75. So again, the low of the day was 87.45. I want to look at the 5-minute time frame. 5-minute time frame, we're hitting the 20 MA, which can be a point to bounce off of. Semi still have some room down though. Trying to determine if we're going to continue dumping or if we're going to bounce. We do have bearish structure form though. And it has validated the bullish structure, which was that cup. So with this inverse cup being very present now, this means that we can be forming a larger head and shoulders. But we're not completely in the woods just yet. I do think a lot of this selling can shift direction pretty quickly. Volatility is picking up a little bit, so it's at 87.80. Still holding my calls and my puts, so just kind of happily sitting in the center right now. Either we're going to have a big breakdown or, a big push to the upside. I'm gonna go say bye to my daughter really quick because she has to go to school. So I will be right back, everybody, just like 1 or 2 minutes. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay, so we did have a bounce, but this can be forming that right shoulder, which we have to be super cautious about. So we're going to mark it. And our volatility did drop back down very heavily. So it's at 87.43, basically the low of the day. Well, not basically, it is the low of the day. So we should be getting our bounce here. So if we can push back towards the high of the day, that would invalidate this bearish structure, which is kind of what we're looking for right now. Now, semiconductors are pushing up pretty hard. Again, semis have to push up towards the 637.42 to really invalidate the bear structure that it's building. But that's looking very good. We're basically $1 away from that. For QQQ, it has a little room to go. We need to push to the 733.78. But looking for one of these to break their bearish structure. And that'll give us, the conviction that we're going to, continue pushing upward. Hague is still buying upward. ADL picking up on the 1 minute time frame. As I say that, a massive falling candle hits. Going to delete this so that we could see. So if we could break that range, then we'll be back in a bullish posture. Volatility is at 87.01, so massive downturn in the volatility, which is, very good for our positions. Got within 2 cents of that range so far. Never mind, I pushed it. Okay. So that's good. Invalidation on semis for the bearish structure. Now we just need to see this same thing occur on the SPY and on QQQ. We are seeing the HIG buying upward during all this, so that kind of help solidify our thesis that we should be pushing back to the high of the day and probably higher. My XPEV calls are finally green. There was a really bad selling candle a couple days on it. We bought the lower Bollinger and it kept dropping. So, um it's great that it's back up almost to the strike. I have the 15 calls for July 17th on XPEV. So those should hit. Now the calls I am mad about are the American Airline calls because we took profit on those at the 1649. Current price is at 1830. So we, you know, left a lot of money on the table on that trade, even though it was still a really big trade. Everybody in chat's so quiet today. How are you all doing? I definitely feel it. I live in Washington State, so it's like 8:12 right now. It'd be nice to be on the East Coast and be able to trade the market at 9:30 compared to 6:30. Waiting for Bitcoin to flush to 52,000. I fully agree with that. I actually think it's going lower than that. So let's go ahead and look at Bitcoin really quick. We even talked about this yesterday, how we said we should be shorting Bitcoin right now. Um, but let's go to the weekly time frame. So on the weekly time frame, and this is really important, and let me kind of preface this. I've been charting Bitcoin since like 2021, 2022, something like that. Um, these channels are pretty much like, I don't know, the God channel. You know, it's been holding Bitcoin up the entire time. However, you can see it's finally broken. Which puts us in this massive selling channel. Okay. Now this selling channel is taking us down very heavily here. So I'm looking for, some massive downside. My first real downside target is that 49,000, but I think that because we're within this selling channel, we could absolutely be heading down much further. So I am anything but bullish on crypto right now. I think crypto is going to get rug pulled, like the entirety of it. Yep, I still have the American Airline puts, and we're going to be holding those too. Wonders, I know exactly how that is. So I don't talk about it very much, but my daughter has autism, um, which means that she's just a big ball of energy 24/7. Um, we can't even like sit down and watch a movie with her without, you know, having to swap activities 10 minutes later, 5 minutes later. So I definitely know how it's like having a little one that is just very, 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 very energetic. How do you short Bitcoin? So there's a plenty of ways how to do that. And let me show you. Do I got the symbols here? Yes, I do. So you can use GBTC, which is the Grayscale Bitcoin ETF, and just take short positions and watch this thing just melt. You know, you could potentially have a short all the way down from this 45 range all the way to the, you know, $7, $5, even lower than that. Or if you really, really want to target the main short, and again, this channel has been holding on MicroStrategy forever. So that broke a while ago. This is the weekly time frame. But MicroStrategy could be going all the way back to, 20 something dollars or less. Okay. Um, there's a lot of downside to take. So plenty of different ETFs and things to short into. We have semiconductors building a cup and handle. Okay, so it's still forming the handle here, but that's bullish. You know, we should be expecting a very large push out of today, which it's really kind of telling me that we might be aiming for some of these highs, like the 739 out of QQQ, the 655 out of semis, the 750 out of SPY. Volatility has just been dropping like a rock today. Remember the high of the day was at 89.39, currently at 87.12. What strike would we, let's see, hold on. He's 6 and can literally run 20 miles a day. I know. My daughter's 3 and I feel like she could run a marathon right now. Master is MicroStrategy, so it's MSTR, but that was basically the original Bitcoin ETF. Even though it's a actual company, they basically marketed themselves as the, primary Bitcoin ETF out there. Now, what strike would we take on GBTC? Let's take a look here. This would be something you'd want to short, like, very, very long term. So, I don't even think for December. There's some of these really, really dated puts looking like here. Oh, come on, don't just show the in the money. Or maybe that's all it goes down to is just 25. But that's a 2-year put. Okay. Well, a year and a half. But I think some of these are reasonable, to be honest. Because think about it, if we really are assuming Bitcoin's going to be dropping pretty hard, you could take a whole, this is a leap position. This is what this would be called. Okay. Any position that's usually 6 months out is a leap. But with this leap position, you'd basically be spending $230, $240 um, for a year and a half out. And if that runs even close to that strike, that's going to move up to, multiple thousands of dollars potentially. So I like that. I'm not going to take it, but I do like it. So we are seeing the invalidation of this Head and Shoulders. Not entirely yet. We still have a little bit more price action to go, but this is likely forming a cup. From that cup, a handle, and that handle would take us back to the high of the day. I'll be right back in a couple minutes, everybody. I'm feeling really nauseous again. I'm sorry, I think I have the flu or something. So I'll be right back. Alright, sorry about that. Okay, so this is invalidating a lot of this bearish structure here. And by a lot of it, I mean all of it. Which is very good. This is telling us that, we're going to be pushing basically a new high of the day. From the cup closing, expect a handle, and to further upside. So we should be pushing into that upper Bollinger slash, 746 range. Volatility is at the 87.11, so still very low on the day. Now I will be taking a majority of the profit on my calls once we push above this 745.38. I'm just feeling very sick today, so I want to make sure to secure profit on this stuff. The HIG moved up to the 80.02. Volatility pulled down slightly to the 87.11 or 87.10, excuse me. I'm just waiting for semis to really start buying. Currently they're at the 634.61. Again, they were basically up at this 7 or this 637 range. So we do have this cup formed, very likely a handle forming on that cup, which is telling us that, we do have plenty of upside. Okay, so let's really try to milk every penny out of our calls here, but don't hold it into the point where they dump it on you. Okay. So we're going to watch everything super closely. We still need QQQ to pull up to the 733.78. Very likely that's trying to occur here. We see this smaller cup forming. But we need semis to start buying. It's going to be a really big proponent in, pushing us upward into all-time highs of the day. But the structure is looking really good overall, especially with the SPY, semiconductors, and QQQ any minute invalidating the bearish structures. So we'll really just try to hold on to these calls here. We're seeing all the signals we need to see. So the VVIX is pulling down. It's at the 87.09. We have the HIG at the 80.03. So the HIG has been buying upward. That's bullish for us. Volatility pulling downward. That's bullish for us. Broke the bearish structure. Again, that's bullish for us. See that bearish structure broken on multiple symbols, which is very bullish. QQQ getting ready to push that 733.78. So We should really get some good runway out of these calls, okay? Really try not to cut them early. It's okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. I try to stream even if I'm not feeling well. Um, you know, last week I was just feeling terrible. Um, I I've had to start a new medication and it's just been making me feel like dirt. Um, but I feel less like dirt this week. So that means we're gonna stream even if we are having to run to the restroom to, you know, throw up. But besides that, so I am looking for semis to start pushing here very soon. Which should give us our push in QQQ and should give us our push in SPY. My USO puts for this week are doing really nicely. That makes me happy. I have the 106 puts expiring on the 1st. We should be getting a very large move up here. Literally any time now. Kind of just like do the 10-second rocket countdown and it should be ready to go. We're starting to see semis push. Starting to see QQQ push. So we just need to see it through. Again, we have a lot of upside today. Even though the market might be up quite a bit right now, we still have a lot of upside right now. So make sure you hold these calls. Really hold these calls for gold here. And if I see some sort of signal telling us to cut them, then we'll go ahead and cut them. But currently I don't see that. And in fact, I want to go ahead and just be out of my hedge puts. I'm watching these calls closely. So if we have to quickly sell them, we'll quickly sell them. But so far, that's not the time yet. Thank you, Imperial. So I'm going to delete this because we all know that's present. And I want to put this right at that 78 just so that I can visually see when we cross that. Yeah, we have a lot of room right now, everybody. So just be very patient with these calls because, I mean, The reason why I'm saying be very patient because say we pull up to the 747 range, um, that's going to add a ton of premium to the calls. Okay, like an absolute boatload of premium to these calls. So don't cut out short here. We have all the signals telling us that we're going up. We have the HIG continuing to buy. It's currently at 80.05. We have semiconductors still holding strong. We have QQQ buying upward. We have our volatility still at the 87.11. So everything's still telling us that our upside's very large here. Now, one thing we can see is that since this cup has formed, this can pull down to form the handle to the upside. Okay, so we may have to contend with that, but so far, everything is telling us we're moving up. I still have mine going for the TSLL. I was very close to cutting those the other day, but I took a put against, I took a put against those positions, and it was the 10.5 strike put. Ended up making quite a lot of profit on that put, and actually added one other position to the Tesla calls, or the TSLL calls. So I'm still bullish on that. I think that they're a little out of range, but I think that with the price action we're seeing in Tesla right now, um, especially over the last couple days, Tesla could be pushing all the way up to the 445 again. Okay, which for TSLL, that would bring us up to the 1657. Okay, which would, you know, start making those positions do very well. Sorry, I'm looking at a couple positions right now. Been really disappointed in HPQ. They've been getting absolutely nuked since they hit their high of the 29.29. Now, one position I'm really kind of upset about is Mark. It's MRK. Um, 2 weeks ago, or not 2 weeks ago, it was either last week or the week before. I can't remember. One of those weeks, I was looking at the 120 calls, and they were about $36 per, something like that. I had full intention to buy it, but that morning I went to buy it, the price ran from 113 to 117. Um, which I don't know why I didn't take the position right at open when I wanted to. But Mark ran all the way up to 130 um, from that 113. So those calls ran over, $900 each. Really kind of bothered about that one, but that's kind of what we target with some of these calls, is that we target mean reversions, which means that, on the daily time frame, weekly time frame, we're looking for that push outside of the Bollingers um, to target positions in the other direction. Can pay off very, very well. Just have to really nail the positions. So I'm upset about that one, but it is what it is. Now we're still just holding our calls here, everybody. Okay. Again, we have all the signals that we need. Volatility is still dropping. It's at 87.05. The HIG is buying upward. It's at 80.05. QQQ, semiconductors, SPY, all still holding very high ranges. So all the conditions are set for major buying on the day. Okay. I'm basically just waiting for semiconductors to give us the move. And we should be seeing this, you know, 746, 747 range. But we have all the structure we need here. Gotta delete this annoying arrow. Trying to hold out before ending the stream for our actual upside push here. So it'd be nice if it happens already because I'm not feeling well today. I try to have a good attitude even if I don't feel well. As you can tell by my voice, I'm a pretty relaxed person, so just need our semis to push and we will be good to go. Now I wonder why these USO puts are only for the first and not for... Oh, maybe I just didn't look at the date properly. I wanted puts for Thursday for USO, but we will take them for tomorrow. Currently my July 1st 106 USO puts are up 10%, which is okay. I am expecting it to push down back towards that 104 range. Just waiting for the buying. Starting to see a little bit of buying out of semis, but we need to see that push back up to the 638. Currently at 635. Volatility is at 8701. SPY, we talked about this cup and handle. Here's this handle forming, which is a nested cup, and that nested cup should form a smaller handle and then break out. We see a nested cup on semiconductors as well, so that's good, that's bullish. QQQ might finally want to push its range, but it does have that nested cup as well. Oh, there's that push, there we go. So let's see if semis reciprocate that, which would be nice. That would give us our major upside breakout. With all these small nested cups, we should be expecting small handles before the major push. So it's building, it's getting ready. Remember, don't shake out of these calls until we really start seeing some signals that things are going to basically pause the buying or selling's going to pick up. Currently, we don't see that at all. We have the volatility at 86.99. The HIG is still holding strong. Just need semiconductors to give us that little bit of push that we need. But I really want everybody to try to get as much out of their calls as they can here. Volatility is back up at the 87. And let's check semis. See the small cup, handle formed. So just waiting for that upside breakout. It's looking good. Semi is starting to buy up. to delete that, and delete that. Nope, no hedge. The hedge is how quickly we can market order sell our calls if we do start seeing downside. Yeah, we're seeing buying out of tech, we're seeing buying out of semis. So that should translate into the SPY buying up very shortly here. Just looking for the breakout on this smaller handle. Now all of our signals are still holding very strong, telling us that we're going to be seeing upside. We're seeing QQQ push new highs of the day. Semis still have some room. They need to climb back up towards that 638 range. Volatility is at the 86.99. My EOSO puts are doing super good right now. They're up 34%. What's going on with the price on that? Let's see. Oh, that's because they're basically in the money. Okay. SPY starting to give us our push. Now we are going to kind of correlate the top of this push with where we expected the top of semiconductors to be. So around that 638 range on semis. That should push the SPY well into the 746 range. Now, I still think that there's a lot of room in today, but I'm just feeling super, super sick right now. So I'm looking for this push, and I will be taking a lot of profit on it, and will be basically just laying in bed the rest of the day, watching the final positions. But this should lead to a breakout to the 746 range. Volatility ticking down as well, 86.97. very small micro cup here. We should form a micro handle and then continue pushing. All of our signals still look very good. And again, we do need to see semiconductors push back up towards that 637.41, which should break out into that 638.47 range. Okay, so really look for that 646 range on the SPY. Seeing some large share buys coming through. The way I set that up is in the time and sales. You can set it on Webull to track anything above 999 shares. So basically I only see the very large orders. Seeing a lot of shares being bought right now though. Here's our 746 any second now. There we go. Now again, semis still have some room to push. Okay, I have cut a couple positions here. Okay, just because we're seeing a little bit of hesitation out of semiconductors. Still holding a large majority of everything though. We are seeing the HIG pull down slightly. And volatility is slowly picking up. It's at 87.19. Okay, everybody, I still think there's more room to push, um, but I'm just feeling horrible right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and call it here. Now, I did take profit on my 745 calls. I still have the 746 calls. Okay, I am looking for that upward push. I am looking for semiconductors to continue this push upward. And QQQ, we hit the top of that cup. So if we see this forming a handle, then that can continue pushing us up on the day. Yeah, yeah, I know, that's how it is. But yeah, I'm gonna call it a day here, everybody. Because I'm feeling horrible. Um, but hopefully everybody's calls are doing good. Make sure you take profit. Don't sit here and let your call get degraded, okay? Um, yes, we can push further. Just watch the signals. Again, I have a watch list where I have the HIG, QQQ, SOX, SPY, and the VVIX all in just one spot so that I can very quickly, monitor everything that's important with the market. I will be adding treasury yields and the dollar and stuff to this later, but currently this is just what I have set with it. So, with that said, I'm gonna go throw up, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Um, we will be having class tonight, for those that are subscribed. Um, I look forward to seeing you all there. We'll be going over how to, um, how to determine structure and going over different structures and learning how to set up buying and selling channels. So, yeah, you're very welcome. Have a great day, everybody. I will talk to you in tomorrow's stream, and I will be streaming tomorrow morning. Even though I usually don't stream Wednesdays, this week we don't have market on Friday, so I will be streaming tomorrow. So, look forward to seeing you all there. Have a great day, everybody.